On today's show, it's finally here. All-Star reserves being announced at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Will Alperen Sengun make the cut? Will the Rockets have representation in this year's All-Star game? Plus, Amen Thompson and Reed Sheppard in the Rising Stars competition. Was Cam Whitmore snubbed? And what other honors and awards are in play this season? It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop comments. The comments help us out a ton on YouTube. I want your predictions. Give me your 7 Western Conference All-Star reserves. We don't care about the Eastern Conference here. Do you think Alperen Sengun makes it as a West reserve in the All-Star game this season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Just do a drive-by. Say go Rockets. Say go Alpy if you want to. Also, subscribe to the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate that. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. And we got a lot to get into on today's show. We're going to speculate on the final outcome of whether or not Alperen Sengun makes it as an All-Star reserve for the Houston Rockets. Will the Rockets have representation in the All-Star game as the number 2 team in a stacked Western Conference and also the 3rd best team in the NBA at large? We'll also talk about Amen Thompson and Reed Sheppard in the Rising Stars game. Was Cam Whitmore snubbed yet again? And then what other honors and awards are actually in play for the Rockets this season? So let's start with the All-Star stuff, because again, I think conventional wisdom would lead you to believe that the NBA has, that coaches would have to pick Alperen Sengun. And that's the important distinction here to remember is, yes, the All-Star game is ultimately a popularity contest between fan voting, player voting, all that stuff. But the reserves, the 7 All-Star reserves for each conference, are picked by NBA coaches. And the coaches are the guys who every single night are having to game plan against these teams, are having to figure out how to stop certain guys, or figuring out what makes these teams tick on a nightly basis. And Alperen Sengun is so heavily responsible for so much of the Rockets' success offensively, whether it involves him directly or indirectly in all the little things that he does, whether he's got the ball in his hands and he's facing up or posting up, or whether he's setting screens for the perimeter players to get downhill, or whether he's operating out of the short roll and creating for his teammates. He has so much gravity, forcing double and triple teams on a nightly basis. He is the guy at the top of the opposing team's scouting report literally each and every night. And because of that, I feel fairly confident in saying that he's going to earn the All-Star reserve nod because of where the Rockets are, of how good they've been this season, and how integral Alperen Sengun has been to that Houston Rockets success. It would be an absolute travesty if the Rockets don't have at least one member representing their team at the All-Star game this season. And it has to be Alperen Sengun. I know there was some speculation that maybe Jalen Green could generate some late All-Star votes potentially. It feels like a little bit, little too late for Jalen Green. The slump in November really hurt his overall season numbers. And even though he's been playing out of his mind here in January, he's probably missed his window for true All-Star consideration this season. And if he can keep up his incredible play, and if he can close out this year strong and then pick up right where he left off next season, then there's a very legit possibility that the Rockets could have 2 All-Stars next season, right? So that's something to work on for down the line. But I feel like Sengun almost has to be a lock this year. And that's where you start to get into the idea of the competition for those 7 spots in the reserve list. And so that's what we'll do right now is we're going to navigate through, and I'll share my pick for the 7 All-Star reserves. So I feel like there's a few that have to be absolute locks, and then it gets into some like more or less gray area. I think there's 4 names that have to be absolute locks on this list, and then you start getting into the gray area of like, okay, who are the final 3 picks? And so I'm curious to see, can I go 7 for 7? Can you go 7 for 7? Put your predictions in the comments. I think Kyrie Irving is an absolute lock. No Luka Doncic due to the injury, so that kind of opens up an extra slot for the Western Conference. So I think Kyrie is a lock. I think Anthony Edwards is absolutely also a lock. So there's 2 guards right there. Victor Wembanyama is going to be in there. As much as I have to begrudgingly give Wemby the nod, he's going to be in there. The NBA is not going to not include Victor Wembanyama in the NBA All-Star game. They want to be able to market the NBA's next big superstar. So that's 3 names down. Anthony Davis is going to be the next one. And that feels, even though it's because of the coaches voting guys in here, I think that AD is clearly one of, if not quite possibly, the best two-way force in the entire NBA on a consistent basis. And he's had a pretty monster season for the Lakers when healthy. So I feel like AD is going to get that honor, even though he's not getting in as a starter. Feels like it makes perfect sense for him to get in as a reserve. So we're up to 4 names now. And then this is where there's a lot of speculation, and you could go any number of different ways. I'm going to follow the same line of thinking that I'm using for the Houston Rockets here for one of my picks, but I will say I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to include Alperen Sengun. So he'll be my 5th pick here. Alperen Sengun, best player on the 2nd best team in the Western Conference, 3rd best team in the NBA, and is incredibly responsible for so much of the offensive burden on a night in, night out basis. But also, and this is the thing that I don't think Alperen Sengun gets enough recognition for this season, is just how important his continued growth and development on the defensive side of the basketball is relative to where the Rockets are defensively as a team. Yes, they finished top 10 in defense last year, and that was good. And we saw a lot of defensive growth and improvement from Alperen Sengun. But for the team to go from top 10 into literally for a chunk of the season being the number 1 defensive team in the NBA, or I apologize, number 2 defensive team in the NBA behind the historically great defense of the OKC Thunder, but to double down, right, and improve the defense that drastically, to go from 10 to top 2, and to be able to hold it down as literally one of the best defenses in the NBA for a majority of the season before the injuries started mounting and other guys started getting hurt. Alp isn't solely responsible for that. I'm not trying to paint that picture, but he's the anchor defensively for this Rockets team. He's the 5. He's the backline defense. He's the guy who has to contest shots at the rim. He's the guy who has to anchor the defense by rebounding at a high level, which he's improved his rebounding this season. So for all those reasons, I think it makes perfect sense. He's got to be a lock. He's got to be. And then I'm going to use that same logic here. The Memphis Grizzlies need representation in the All-Star game, and it could go either way here. You could argue Ja Morant. You could argue Jaren Jackson Jr. One of them should be selected to the All-Star reserves for the Grizzlies. You could go either way on that one. You could convince me of Ja. You could convince me of Jaren. But the Grizzlies deserve one of their 2 star players in the All-Star conversation. And I think there is some argument to maybe say that Triple J's had a better season, had kind of a career year and a better year than Ja Morant. When you look at the counting stats and everything. So maybe you lean Triple J there, but I could be convinced of either one of those names making it in. So that puts us at 6 of 7 names. And there are a bunch of other names to consider here, names that I haven't gotten close to, and this is where it gets really sticky, right? So there's obviously Domantas Sabonis with the Sacramento Kings, but the Kings have waffled about this season, right? They've underperformed relative to expectations. How are you really going to put that many bigs in as core of reserves? Are you going to have, Wemby and Alpi and AD and Triple J and Domantas Sabonis, right? That's 5 bigs. And even if you classify a few of those guys as forwards for all-star statistic purposes or whatever, and then you got the 2 wild card spots, whatever, like I can't see it happening. And I think based on just team success and responsibility for said team success, I think you have to give the nod to Alperen Sengun over a guy like Domantas Sabonis based on where the Kings are currently in the Western Conference standings. And look, it's not the first time that there's been a player who's played out of his mind on a very much lower seeded team and hasn't gotten the All-Star honor, sent his way. So it wouldn't be it wouldn't be completely disrespectful for Sabonis not to make it in this year. I'm going to go with my final pick, and I got to go with Jalen Williams from OKC. OKC's been so dominant, so good this season, and maybe it makes more sense to spread the love around and try to include one other name from some other organization. Maybe the Clippers deserve some representation. Maybe you want to hand it to James Harden or even Norm Powell, right? If you really want to go wide left and give some recognition to a guy who's absolutely having literally the best year of his career, on a Clippers team that needed somebody to step up with the absence of Kawhi Leonard, and a Clippers team that surprised a lot of people this season. But I'm going to say Jalen Williams. The Thunder have been a historically great team to this point in the season. We're coming off an upset of them in the Bay Area against the Warriors, so that probably doesn't help his candidacy. But I wouldn't hate the pick, right? The Thunder have been incredible. SGA's, I think, the clear front runner for the MVP award, even more so than Nikola Jokic. And then J-Dub has had a completely phenomenal year. He's had a breakout season, and he's absolutely playing like an all-star. And whether or not he gets the nod, sometimes players play like all-stars and they don't get the nod. There's only a limited number of spots on the roster, but I think that's going to be my final 7 names. So again, I've got Kyrie, Ant, Wemby, we'll go Triple J, Anthony Davis, Triple J, J-Dub from OKC, and then of course Alperen Sengun of your Houston Rockets. So I'm curious your thoughts. I'm curious the names you have on your list. What are your 7 selections for the Western Conference All-Star Reserves? Who do you think ultimately gets the nod? Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Coming up, I do want to talk about the NBA Rising Stars game at All-Star Weekend this year, with Amen Thompson repping on the sophomore squad and Reed Sheppard repping on the G League squad. What? Didn't get in as a rookie. That's kind of weird. And was Cam Whitmore snubbed yet again? Plus, what other honors and awards are in play for the Rockets this season? We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Look, taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and just everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, and no more worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's go ahead and quickly tackle the NBA Rising Stars game, where the Rockets do have some continued representation. They've had representation for the last few years with the fact that they keep bringing in top draft picks, and the Rising Stars competition features both rookies and sophomores. So you get kind of 2 classes of player in there, as well as in recent years, they've added the G League squad, which honestly, at this point, I hope they kind of do away with, because it made sense when they had the G League Ignite, and it made sense when they were trying to feature some of the up-and-coming G League talent that was on that Ignite team that were going to be top draft picks. Now it's kind of like, what are you doing? And that feeds exactly into my next point here, which is so weird that... So Amen Thompson, he's on the sophomore team. Cool. He'll get drafted to one of the 3 like actual rookie/sophomore squads. And it'll be fun to watch him play against his peers. But Reed Sheppard got stuck on the G League team, and it kind of sucks because Reed Sheppard literally only played a handful of games with the RGV Vipers. And it makes you wonder, first off, it was absolutely done. The NBA League office picks the names for the G League squad here. And it was absolutely done as a way to kind of shoehorn in Reed Sheppard, since he's the former number 3 overall pick, and the NBA wants to be able to market and advertise its young players. And frankly, compared to his peers, Reed Sheppard has not played nearly as much. He hasn't been nearly as impactful, and he's had a relatively, probably disappointing relative to expectations start to his rookie season. understandably, right? He got drafted to a situation where the Rockets are a winning team and they're winning at an incredibly high level, right? And Ime Udoka, after giving him a chance early this season to see if he was ready, he just wasn't, right? And so they had to go with Aaron, and that's okay. That's not an indictment on Reed Sheppard. He's a rookie. These things happen. And not only is it hard to translate to the NBA game as a rookie, it's also hard to translate to playing high-level winning basketball as a rookie. That's a very rare occurrence. So this isn't an indictment on Reed, but I think it is kind of stupid and weird that they saddled him with the G League squad, of whom are, again, these are all like fringe NBA players. Like, he's going to be partnered with freaking Mac McClung, reigning dunk contest champion, looking for a three-peat here. And look, maybe I shouldn't completely be writing off the G League squad. There is some talent on there. Leonard Miller's a solid player. Pat Spencer's decent, but like, I don't know. I think it's kind of funky how they did that. And again, I think it's just the NBA trying to push and make sure that there was some inclusion there. But here's the really weird angle. Reed Sheppard only played 3 games for the RGV Vipers. And when he was added to the G League squad for the Rising Stars competition, he wasn't added as a Houston Rocket. He was added as a member of the RGV Vipers, which is funky looking already. Cam literally played, 11 games. Sorry, no, not 11. Yeah, 11 games this season for the Vipers. So if you were going to add anybody to flesh out the Vipers squad, why not add Cam Whitmore? And then on top of that, if you were going to stick Reed Sheppard on the G League squad because you just wanted to include him in the Rising Stars competition, why could you have not just given him his teammate from the Houston Rockets? I would have absolutely loved to see Reed Sheppard and Cam Whitmore absolutely torching teams in the Rising Stars competition. That would have been peak fun. Like, the NBA so clearly dropped the ball here. And I don't know if it's a situation of like, they asked Cam if he wanted to participate and he was like, be on the G League squad? No. And I'm sure Reed was all giddy to do it because he's a rookie. So he's, all, starry-eyed and bright-eyed and excited for the future. And maybe Cam was just like, I'm better than that. Like, I should have been included on the sophomore squad, even though y'all didn't include me last year on the rookie squad. So feels like Cam got snubbed again this season, which is frustrating. It is what it is. I just wanted to complain about it a little bit. And it's even worse because, again, the G League squad doesn't get drafted. So the sophomore and the rookie squad, they get drafted and split across 3 different teams. And then the G League squad is just what it is. So it just would have been really cool to give Reed like an actual, like a talented running mate. The flip side of it is maybe we get like another Reed, like 40 piece, maybe he burns for almost 50 or something. Well, I guess technically not possible because they play to 40, but maybe we get the chance to see Reed Sheppard absolutely cook on that G League squad because he's clearly the best and most talented player on that team. So with that, I'll get off my high horse about the Rising Stars competition. It'll be fun to see Reed and Amen compete against their peers. Let's transition into what other awards and honors could the Houston Rockets be in play for this season. And we'll keep things focused on Amen Thompson here because it feels like, based on the narrative surrounding him and the kind of mounting national media attention that he's getting, which, look, Amen Thompson is soon to become a national media darling with how endearing he is and how earnest he is in some of these, like, viral post-game interviews and his moment, I feel like Kobe after my first game winner. And, he's really letting his personality shine through this year. What is it the kids say? What is it Ryan Hollins has been saying? His aura is maxing right now. So he's aura maxing. God, I'm too old to be saying that. I can't do this. Anyways, and he's having a career year, right? He's been inserted into the starting lineup and he's probably never going to leave the Houston Rockets starting lineup. And that's a good place to start because I really thought Amen Thompson was going to be in the running for 6th man of the year this season. And as it currently stands, Amen Thompson is actually the 3rd best odds favorite to win 6th man of the year right now. It's Peyton Pritchard leading by a landslide at -155 as a favorite, DeAndre Hunter +250, and then Amen Thompson +800. So that's your top 3 to win 6th man of the year. Now, unfortunately for Amen Thompson, well, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to view it, Amen Thompson is too good to be a 6th man and has been inserted in the starting lineup and is likely not coming back out of the starting lineup. So no chance at 6th man of the year. That's gone now. And I will say, as incredible as Amen Thompson has been defensively this season, it would not shock me if he were able to generate a couple like loose kind of extra ancillary votes for defensive player of the year. Right now, Victor Wembanyama is the overwhelming favorite to win DPOY at minus 850 to win the award. So he's going to win it this season, period. It's not going to anybody else. And you can make all kinds of arguments about, how good does the team need to be to actually win DPOY? Can you give DPOY to a team that didn't even make the play-in tournament if the Spurs don't make it? But his individual dominance cannot be denied. Wemby is an incredible defensive player. And here's the unfortunate thing for Amen Thompson. As good as he is defensively, the DPOY award is going to be like the new version of the MVP award with LeBron James, like back during his prime, because literally you could just hand the MVP award every season to LeBron James and nobody would have been mad. That's just how good LeBron was in his peak from the end of his Cavs tenure all through the Miami era and into his second stint with Cleveland. Like, you could have given the MVP award to LeBron every season. And it's going to be that way with Wemby. Literally every year, you're going to look at Wemby's production defensively and you're going to be like, well, DPOY him, and he's going to rack up multiple DPOYs over the course of his career. Here's what's hopefully going to happen for Amen Thompson at some point in his career. Voters will get voter fatigue giving the DPOY award to Wemby. He'll win like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 in a row, and then they'll have to survey the NBA landscape and be like, okay, we can't keep giving the award to Wemby. Who else can we give it to? Now, keep in mind that during this stretch of, Wemby's going to rack up all these awards, Amen is going to receive votes. He's too good not to. He's such an impactful defensive piece that especially once he's a legitimate full-time starter from the start of a season, plays all 82 games, that kind of thing, there's no way he doesn't walk away as a multi-year top 3 finalist for DPOY down the line. And eventually, once the voter fatigue sets in and Wemby racks up 2 or 3 or 4 awards, Amen Thompson will be able to sneak in there and steal himself a couple DPOY awards. There's no way that Amen Thompson doesn't get at least 1 or 2 DPOY awards throughout the entirety of his career. I feel very safe in making that call right now. And I also feel very safe in making the call that Amen Thompson is absolutely going to be on one of the 2 all-defensive teams this season. I think you almost have to include him on all-defensive first team. Off the top of my head, I'm like going through all the different names for all defense first team, right? There's Wemby, of course, Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., Lou Dort, SGA's got to be included there probably somewhere. Bam Adebayo's incredible, Rudy Gobert. I mean, there's so many different names. Dyson Daniels having an incredible year defensively. So I don't know if he's a shoo-in for the first team, but he's going to make it to at least one of the 2 teams as an absolute certainty. So that's kind of the situation with Amen Thompson and the awards that he's could or could not be in play for anymore. So no more 6th man of the year. He might get 1 or 2 votes for DPOY just because that always happens. There's some like random votes that kind of shake loose a little bit. And he's really kind of stunned the NBA landscape with how good he's been. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some media voters toss some votes his way, even if it's not realistic for him to win it whatsoever. It's kind of like a little like, hey, like we recognize how good you've been kind of thing. Like I'll give you the, my 3rd place vote for DPOY, whatever. But he should make an all defensive squad. Absolutely. Coming up, want to discuss the last 2 awards that the Houston Rockets have pretty strong cases for this season. Coach of the Year for Ime Udoka and Executive of the Year for Rafael Stone. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, attending playoff games is truly an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. I still remember every single Rockets playoff game that I've attended over the years, watching James Harden in his prime, going toe-to-toe with the Golden State Warriors dynasty, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant at their peak of their powers. It was one of my core memories, right? Core memory unlocked kind of thing, watching those 2 teams go head to head. I remember all the excitement, the energy of that playoff atmosphere. There's truly nothing like it. And Game Time can be your best way to secure playoff tickets this season. And the Rockets are definitely bound for the playoffs. They've got a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different ticketing offers. I was using Game Time recently to look for some Rockets tickets to go with some friends to a game later this season, and looking through the deals was so simple. You can find great value on all kinds of different seats. The Super Deal, really impressive, offering the best value, the most bang for your buck on any ticket buying site when it comes to the Houston Rockets. You get views from your seat before you buy, all in pricing with no surprise fees. They're fully transparent. That's one of the best parts about using Game Time. You don't get any hidden fees along the way. It's a smooth, reliable experience. Plus, you get on-time ticket delivery and their lowest price guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's get into the last couple awards here that the Houston Rockets should or could be in play for this season. And right now, NBA Coach of the Year, the overwhelming favorite to win it is Kenny Atkinson with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's minus 280 right now on FanDuel Sportsbook. And assuming the Cavs keep up their level of record dominance that they've had this season, they're going to be just fine. And Atkinson, first of all, I love Kenny Atkinson. I think he's a phenomenal coach, and he's done an incredible job with the Cavs. He's very deserving of the award. Make no mistake about that. However, if the Cavs do start to falter, I think there's a very legitimate argument that if the Cavs by season's end have a record that is more comparable to where the Rockets currently are or will be by season's end, instead of being like head and shoulders one tier above the Rockets, which they currently are, I'll give them their credit, then I think it's a fair toss-up to wonder who would be more deserving of Coach of the Year. Would it be Kenny Atkinson with the Cavs? Would it be Ime Udoka with the Rockets? Taking a team that was previously 41-41 and elevating them to second best in the Western Conference and one of the overall best teams in the entire association is a pretty strong argument for Udoka. For Kenny Atkinson, he took a Cavs team that had already had a core together and had already experienced a significant level of success, albeit some disappointing playoff exits, absolutely, but they have quite a bit more to work with, right? They have established all-stars in Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. They have an up-and-coming all-star in Evan Mobley. Also one of the contenders for DPOY, right? There's a lot more top-end talent, I think, on that Cavs team, at least on paper, or more so established talent, right? Their core is a little bit older. They've been together longer. And so, yeah, Kenny came in and he fixed up what wasn't working under JB Bickerstaff and gave them a new identity, and their offense is high-octane and incredible and everything, and they do the Cavalanche thing every game. So he deserves a ton of credit for that. But I think it's a fair argument to say that Ime Udoka has done more with less, and that's not to discredit the talent on this Houston Rockets roster. There's a ton of talent up and down this roster, but it's very easy to look at the Cavs and say, well, the expectations were different. That Cavs team was supposed to be good. Now, Kenny took them from being a good team to a historically great team, and TBD if that holds up, but Udoka's also done an incredible job with this Rockets team. It's just unfortunate that, like on any other year, Udoka would be the overwhelming favorite based on what he did, taking the Rockets from missing the play-in tournament entirely at 41-41 to potentially finishing as the second best team in the stacked Western Conference and potentially the third or fourth best team overall in the entire NBA. So it'll be really interesting to pay attention to that race. It's literally just those two guys. Like it's Atkinson, it's Udoka, and then the third best name on the list is actually Jamal Mosley. A tie between Mosley and Bickerstaff, so the Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons, but they're both plus 2,000 to win it. So it's Kenny Atkinson's award to lose, and Ime Udoka, if the Rockets keep up this excellent play and finish off the season as the 2 seed, if the Cavs falter a little bit, maybe he has a shot at it, but if not, he'll absolutely be a finalist, and at least he's getting some recognition there for the work that he's done. Last one that the Rockets have a chance at, and this one's going to be a little bit funkier because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they might give the Rockets the Executive of the Year award to Rafael Stone as like a consolation prize if they don't win coach of the year. Like maybe sometimes, it's like, okay, well, you didn't win coach of the year, so here's executive of the year, or vice versa. Okay, you won executive of the year, so we're gonna have to go coach of the year on another. I don't know, but you look at the history of executive of the year awards, and unfortunately for the Rockets, it's not like Rafael Stone swung any big deals this past offseason, right? His biggest transaction happened last year, which was trading for Steven Adams. And he's been impactful. He's been great this year. But if he does nothing at the trade deadline, all he's done in the last calendar year was draft Reed Sheppard and bring in Steven Adams and then let the roster get healthy. Is that enough to warrant him being named executive of the year when you've got other competition like Leon Rose with the New York Knicks finessing that big trade for Karl Anthony Towns before the start of the season? Sam Presti with the OKC Thunder, who signed Isaiah Hartenstein and traded for Alex Caruso, and then they doubled down as not only just the 1 seed and the best team in the conference, but like a historically good team, right? And just absolutely, creating a historic defense and doing it despite the injuries. So I don't know. I struggle to see how Stone would be able to walk away compared to some of the other moves and transactions that other teams have done relative to their level of success compared to the Rockets. Yes, the Rockets have been more successful than some of those teams that I just named, the Knicks, oh my goodness, why am I blanking? Did I name another? I didn't. I just named Knicks and Thunder. But so yeah, better than the Knicks, not better than the Thunder. I don't know. I think this one is not quite a long shot. He'll be in the running for it, maybe even a finalist for it. But again, maybe they play it as like a consolation prize. Like, hey, we want to recognize the Houston Rockets. You guys are great, but Udoka couldn't win coach of the year because Kenny Atkinson's Cavs were just too good. So here, take executive of the year because you guys leveled up considerably, and it's really the only award that we're able to give you out of all the awards at the end of the season, and we want to give you some level of recognition. Not to say that Rafael Stone doesn't deserve a lot of credit for the incredible job that he's done and for making the selection to draft Amen Thompson and finessing and cultivating all this young talent and bringing in Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet to kind of steady the ship and all this stuff, and going out and signing Ime Udoka, right? There's a lot of decisions that he deserves credit for, but nothing that jumps off the page within the last calendar year. And I wonder if that's how they would look at it, or if they would judge it based on the entire body of work that led to this moment of the Rockets being one of the best teams in the NBA. It'd be really interesting to hear how some of the other executives, because that's the award where all the executives vote on that award together, right? So all 30 executives vote amongst themselves who of their peers deserves the honor at the end of the season. So it'll be curious to see how that one plays out. But I want all your thoughts. I want your all-star reserve predictions. Does Alperen Sengun make the cut? Where do you think the Rockets are in play for other awards this season? How do you feel about the Rising Stars thing? Was Cam Whitmore snubbed? Is it weird having Reed Sheppard on the G League squad instead of mixed in with the other rookies and sophomores? And how do you feel about Coach of the Year and Executive of the Year for these Houston Rockets? Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop the comments while you're there. Subscribe to the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.